They say the eyes are the window to the soul, but in Silicon Valley, the voice is the weapon. Meet Elizabeth, the world's youngest female self-made billionaire, the next Steve Jobs, the woman who promised to save millions of lives with a single drop of blood. She had it all. The black turtleneck, the unblinking stare, and the voice, that deep commanding baritone that hypnotized presidents, generals, and billionaires. But it was all a performance. The technology didn't work. The blood tests were fake. And the voice? Even that was a lie. While Sam Bankman-Fried stole your money, Elizabeth Holmes did something far worse. She risked your life. Welcome to the autopsy of Theranos. To understand the fraud, you have to understand the hunger. Elizabeth didn't just want to be rich, she wanted to be an icon. She worshipped Apple. She hired Apple's designers. She wore the same clothes as Steve Jobs. She even set her office thermostat to 65 degrees, just like him. She was cosplaying a genius. Her pitch was seductive. No more big needles, no more scary tubes. Just one tiny prick on the finger and we can test for hundreds of diseases. Cancer, diabetes, HIV. It sounded like magic. Because it was. Investors like Rupert Murdoch and Larry Ellison poured in $900 million. Theranos was valued at $9 billion. Why did nobody check the science? Because they weren't investing in a medical device. They were investing in a story. A story about a 19-year-old girl changing the world. Inside the shiny black box called the Edison, there was no magic. There was chaos. The machine didn't work. The blood samples kept clotting. The mechanical arms broke. When the machine failed during demos, they simply faked the results. Here is the terrifying truth they hid from the world. Theranos wasn't using their own technology. They were secretly buying commercial machines from Siemens, hacking them, and running the tests on those. They were taking blood from patients, diluting it, which alters the results, and running it on standard equipment. And the results? They were wildly inaccurate. They told healthy people they had cancer. They told sick people they were fine. This wasn't just fraud. This was medical roulette. But a fake machine in a basement doesn't make you a billionaire. To get the money, you need a partner. You need a giant. Enter Walgreens. Elizabeth targeted the pharmacy giant with the precision of a predator. She played a dangerous game of FOMO, fear of missing out. She walked into the Walgreens boardroom and told them a lie. If you don't sign the deal now, I'm going to CVS. It was a bluff, but it worked. Walgreens executives were so terrified of losing the next iPhone of medicine to their competitors that they bypassed their own safety protocols. Usually, before buying a medical company, you inspect the lab, you check the science. But Elizabeth forbade it. She told them, the technology is a trade secret. If you enter the lab, the deal is off. Incredibly, Walgreens agreed. They signed a deal worth hundreds of millions of dollars without ever looking inside the box. They bought a car without checking if it had an engine. And then, the wellness centers opened. Real patients in Arizona started walking into Walgreens, rolling up their sleeves, and trusting Theranos. This is where the fraud turned into chaos. The results were coming back wrong. One patient was rushed to the ER because Theranos said he was having a massive stroke. He wasn't. Another was told her thyroid medication wasn't working, so her doctor doubled the dose, nearly poisoning her. Behind the scenes, the Theranos lab was a graveyard of data. When a test result was obviously impossible, they didn't fix the machine. They simply deleted the data point. They called it outlier removal. In reality, it was evidence tampering on an industrial scale. So how did a 19-year-old dropout keep this fraud alive for so long? Why didn't anyone stop her? The answer lies in her board of directors. Elizabeth surrounded herself with the most powerful men in America. Henry Kissinger, George Shultz, General James Mattis. Notice something? None of them were doctors. None of them were scientists. They were old men, mostly over the age of 70, who were charmed by a young woman who looked at them with wide eyes and called them mentors. She weaponized their reputation. If anyone questioned the science, she didn't show them data. She pointed to Henry Kissinger and said, "Do you think he would be on my board if this was fake?" It was a psychological shield. She used these men as human armor. When George Shultz's own grandson Tyler tried to tell him that the machine was a fraud, the old man didn't believe his own flesh and blood. He chose Elizabeth. He told his grandson to shut up and sided with the fraudster. That is the power of high-level manipulation. She didn't just trick their wallets, she hacked their egos. While the lab was falling apart, the lifestyle was escalating. Elizabeth traveled with a security detail that rivaled the president's. Her team codenamed her Eagle One. She burned through cash to maintain the illusion of success. Bulletproof glass in her office, private chefs, expensive lawyers on retainer, ready to sue anyone who whispered the word scam. It was an empire built on quicksand, held together by non-disclosure agreements and the blind faith of powerful men who were too proud to admit they had been conned by a girl in a black turtleneck. Elizabeth was the face, but behind her stood the muscle, Ramesh Sunny Balwani, her secret lover and the company's president. If Elizabeth was the cult leader, Sunny was the enforcer. Theranos wasn't an office, it was a fortress of paranoia. They tracked employees' key cards, they monitored their emails, they discouraged people from talking to each other. Sunny was known for firing people on the spot for asking simple questions like, does the machine actually work? Fear was the currency. Anyone who doubted the mission was an enemy, and enemies were destroyed. But the cost of this lie wasn't just measured in dollars, it was measured in human life. Ian Gibbons was the chief scientist at Theranos, a brilliant chemist from Cambridge. He knew the technology was a sham. He tried to warn Elizabeth, he tried to fix it, but they silenced him. When a lawsuit threatened to force him to testify, Ian was trapped. He couldn't lie under oath, but he couldn't tell the truth without being destroyed by Theranos' aggressive lawyers. The pressure was too much. The night before his deposition, Ian Gibbons took an overdose of Tylenol and alcohol. He died alone. When Elizabeth Holmes heard the news of her chief scientist's suicide, she didn't send condolences to his widow. She simply ordered her team to go to his office and retrieve his laptop. The show had to go on, but the numbers on a balance sheet are abstract. The horror of Theranos was physical. Consider the real victims. One woman was told she was miscarrying her baby based on a Theranos test. For days, she lived in a hell of grief. She prepared for the loss of her child, mourning a life that hadn't even started. But the test was wrong. Her baby was perfectly healthy. The machine had simply malfunctioned. Or think about the cancer patients who were told they were in remission when they weren't. Or healthy people told they were dying. Elizabeth didn't just steal money, she stole peace of mind. She stole time, and her ambition knew no borders. She targeted the US military. She charmed General James Mattis, convincing him to put these faulty devices on medevac helicopters in Afghanistan. Imagine a soldier, bleeding out in a war zone, and the medic is relying on a toy box held together with tape to save his life. That is not just fraud, that is a war crime in the making. She was ready to let soldiers die to keep her valuation high. Even when the rumors started, her arrogance was blinding. She went on national television, looked into the camera with those wide, unblinking eyes, and famously said, "First they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then you change the world." She wasn't just lying to us, she was lying to herself. She had constructed a reality where she was the Messiah and everyone else was just an obstacle to be crushed. The empire seemed invincible, but it had a fatal flaw. The truth has a nasty habit of leaking out. Tyler Shultz, the grandson of a board member, saw the fraud firsthand. Despite threats from lawyers, despite his own family turning against him, he contacted a reporter named John Carreyrou. When the article hit the Wall Street Journal, the dam broke. Regulators swarmed in. Walgreens canceled their partnership. The $9 billion valuation evaporated overnight. The black turtlenecks didn't look cool anymore. They looked like a costume for a convict. Even during her trial, the manipulation didn't stop. She got pregnant, twice, delaying her sentence and appearing as a sympathetic mother to the jury. She blamed everything on Sunny. She dropped the deep voice. But it didn't work. She was sentenced to 11 years in prison. SBF and Elizabeth Holmes are behind bars, but they were just the symptoms of a sick system, a system that rewards the best liars. But there is one place where lies don't work. A place where algorithms control reality, and one man holds the keys to the global brain. He bought Twitter. He builds rockets. And some say he is the only one who can save us. Or, is he just another emperor with no clothes? Next time, we dissect the chaotic mind of Elon Musk. You don't want to miss it.